The Conjurverse is once again haunted by Valak, and there is already talk about whether the demon's most terrible manifestation may return in The Nun 3. The Conjuring, a horror series centered on Ed and Lorraine Warren, has a spin-off called The Nun. The Conjuring, which is set in Europe in the 1950s, is set several years after The Nun. The Nun films, like its sister spin-off Annabelle, center on Valak, the titular nun, a particular being that the Warren family encountered. The Nun 2, which debuted in 2023, served as a prequel to The Conjuring Last Rites, but there is already demand for the Nun spin-off series to be expanded into a trilogy. Valak took control of Maurice in The Nun 2, a character that appeared in The Nun and other Conjuring films. By the time the movie ended, Sister Irene had saved Maurice and sent Valak back to hell. Maurice appears to be healed, but Sister Irene's quick glance reveals that she is not entirely confident that Valak has been defeated. Sister Irene's concerns are validated when the nun makes her way to the Warrens by the end of The Conjuring, proving that there is a compelling cause to continue the series with The Nun 3. The latest The Nun 3 news. The Nun 3 is still unannounced and has never been mentioned in relation to James Wan's intentions for subsequent films set in the Conjuring universe. Michael Chavez, the director of The Nun 2, however, talked to SFX magazine in August 2023. According to Games Radar, he believes that The Nun 3 has the potential to develop the plot further. The Nun 2 contains the phrase, "Demons are infinite." I enjoy the notion that she has always existed in various guises. I believe there are still more tales to be told about Valak the evil nun. Chavez replied, "Anyone who saw the first Conjuring knows that Maurice is possessed and then exorcised by the Warrens, and we know that that happens in the late 60s in the Conjuring timeline." When asked what kinds of stories could occur in The Nun 3 and how they'd fit into the larger universe of The Conjuring, then he continued, "The Nun 2 is set in the 50s, so we're still a long way from that. The events that take place in between begin to round out the narrative a little. The Nun 3 isn't confirmed with $5.3 million earned globally over its first weekend. The Nun 2 has been a relative box office triumph for New Line Studios and is now the second highest opening film for the Conjuring series. The Nun 3 has not yet been confirmed.
The Nun 2, a
and there is
character
no
that appeared in The
indication
Nun and
that
other
there are
Conjuring
any plans
films.
for it
By
to
the
begin
time the movie
development
ended,
anytime
Sister
soon,
Irene had saved
despite
Morris
the
and sent
audience's
Valak back to
apparent
hell.
continued
Morris
interest
appeared
in the spin-off series. The Nun 3 release date prediction, it would probably take a while, even if The Nun 3 were to be announced soon. The Nun was published in 2018, while the sequel, The Nun 2, wasn't released until 2023, 5 years later. Although The Nun 3 hasn't been officially confirmed, it's reasonable to anticipate it in 2026 at the very least, and even this is optimistic. The Nun 3 cast. It is hard to correctly estimate the cast of The Nun 3 until it is confirmed. The main character of the Conjuring offshoot series is the demon Valak, who could reappear at any time in history. As a result, Bonnie Adams, who has played the role of Valak in the shape of the nun in all of the characters' appearances since the original The Conjuring movie, is the only cast member whose participation is confirmed. There's always a remote potential that The Nun 3 introduces a brand new cast of human beings, much like many previous horror sequels in other franchises have done. But some cast members are likely to show up in The Nun 3 if it continues right after the conclusion of The Nun 2, which are Thaisa Farmiga as Sister Irene Jonas Bloquet, as Maurice/Frenchie Storm Reed, as Sister Deborah. It's nearly a given that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga will return as Ed and Lorraine Warren in The Nun 3, which would conclude the trilogy by detailing in detail how Valak was finally cast out of Frenchie. If the third The Nun movie is confirmed, there will probably be a number of additional characters added to the cast. The Nun 3 story details the plot of The Nun 3 has not yet been revealed, even if it is confirmed. Ed and Lorraine Warren returned in The Nun 2's post-credit sequence. However, many believe that this is more of a setup for The Conjuring 4, also known as The Conjuring Last Rites, than it is for The Nun 3. The Nun and Frenchie's years in the Conjuring timeline are still unaccounted for, according to director Michael Chavez's comments. In The Nun 3, Valak might make a second trip back to Maurice, and the film could end before he encounters the Warrens. Or the third installment of the series might properly integrate the Warren family into the brand spinoff by eventually revealing their initial run-in with Valak and the Nun. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more.